Welcome to chapter 16, putting it all together. So up until this point, I have presented the 1 degree shift in various ways through various methods. And I've shared with you the kind of behind the scenes concepts of what really makes up the 1 degree shift method. And so now what we're going to do is really put everything that we've been learning in all of the chapters together into a really simple, really easy 7-step formula that you can go to and use every single day, regardless of what the issue is. Everything from really big issues like that big elephant in the room, all the way to really small issues that you may have in your life. So with that said, let's dig into each of the 7 steps. So the first step is, what's the situation? And in this one, we're actually going to look at what's going on in your life right now. And I actually want you to think about what is actually happening. Not what you think is happening, but what is actually happening. I also want you to look at your feelings around this situation. So your feelings matter. As you've kind of noticed throughout this entire program, your feelings really dictate if something feels off, if something feels right, if something feels excited. So this needs to be addressed. A lot of the times people kind of poo-poo their feelings and try to shove them aside because of what they logically think they need to do. We're not going to do that here, okay? We're going to get really raw and honest. And this honestly gets a little bit gritty when you do it the right way. So again, this first step might not be easy, but it's always worth it. So really recognize and understand the importance of seeing clearly where you're at. Now, most people try to avoid this step and they stumble right out of the gate because they're not brutally honest with themselves. So this isn't usually intentional because a lot of the times it's a really fine line between what we think is going on versus what is actually going on. So if you've been doing the exercises in this book, you're already 1 step ahead of the game, okay? So I want you to look at that list that you made from chapter 4. It's that list of bullshit, okay? So remember that brain dump where you just dumped everything out? And you chose the number 1 thing right now that was your stressor. So for this step, really that's what it's all about, is choose one of those stressors and just ask yourself, okay, so this is a stressor. Okay, what's actually going on and how do I feel about this? So remember I was talking about cat litter. What's actually going on is there was cat litter on the floor. And how did I feel about it? I hated it. I hated it. So again, you can use this for the big things, you can use this for the little things. But you have to look at what's causing you pain, what's causing you stress, what's causing you hardship. And a lot of the time, when you can just go back and look at that brain dump, this is going to really help you get clear as to what issue or what thing to tackle first in your life. So once you write down where you're at and you've written down also what the facts are, like what is actually going on, and then what your feelings are, then you can head on over to step number 2. And step number 2 is, what do I want instead? So remember the scene in Alice in Wonderland where she encounters the Cheshire Cat. And she asked the Cheshire Cat, hey, would you please tell me which way that I should go? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, it depends on where you're headed. Like, where do you want to go? And she goes, it doesn't really matter. Then the Cheshire Cat's like, well, then it doesn't really matter which way you go. And there's so much wisdom to the Cheshire Cat's words. So it doesn't really matter where you go until you know where you want to go. So when you know where you want to go, that's a huge step. So step number 2 is huge because that gives you that compass point in your GPS as to where you're actually headed. Remember early on in this program, I talked about there's a car going from the East Coast to the West Coast. That West Coast is like, this is where you're at and this is where you're headed. And so this will tell you exactly what steps to take. So step number 2. What do you want instead? So once you're done with that, then you're ready for step 3. And step number 3 is Am I willing to do something about this issue? Now, this might seem really simple, like, well, yeah, like, of course I'm ready to do this because I'm bringing it up. Sometimes you might not be ready. Now, you might not be ready because of financial situation. You might not be ready because just conditions just aren't right. This isn't about procrastinating. This isn't about, fear holding you back. Just the timing in your life might not be right. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients was actually struggling in her marriage. So she'd been married for a good number of years. She had 2 children. She had 1 on the way. And she found out early on in her marriage that her husband was cheating on her. She ignored it, whatever. But now that she was pregnant with her 3rd child and she just found out that her husband was cheating again, she's like, oh, okay, I'm done. So I walked her through these steps. I said, okay, so the situation is your husband's cheating, you got 2 kids, you got another one on the way, you just got a brand new house, and you're feeling very upset about it and you're done. And she's like, yes. I said, okay, what do you want instead? She goes, I want a divorce and I want my husband out of the house. And I'm like, okay, so are you willing to do something about this? And at the time, she wasn't. She's like, no, I can't. And I said, okay, why not? And she said, because I don't have the financial means to support the children and I don't have the financial means to keep the house. And that's what I want to do. And I said, okay, so what can you do instead of filing for divorce? What now can you do? And which brings us to the step number 4, what's the opportunity hidden inside of this obstacle? And again, the more honest that you can be with yourself, the better, and the better results you're going to get. So she said, well, what I can do is I can focus on saving money and I can also focus on building my business so that when I do decide enough is enough and file for divorce, I'll be able to keep the house with the children in it so that they have that stable, environment and then go from there. And so there are times when we want a specific result or we want to go to a specific area or thing in our life, but the conditions just aren't right. And so what the opportunity is we can create the perfect scenario and the perfect time for that. So, we've all felt like that there are problems that really just get in the way and we're just like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? But if you start to look for the opportunity held within the problem, instead of just focusing on the problem or focusing on the obstacle, what happens is all of a sudden you start to see what else is possible. You start to see what else is possible. So shift your focus from the obstacle itself and start to look just a little bit deeper. And I promise you, every single obstacle that we face has opportunities hidden inside of it if you just look for them and you are willing to explore what that might be. So that brings us to step number 5. What's one small step that you can take right now? Now, this is essentially what this entire program is all about, okay? And what my book is all about. It's about taking and making one small baby step, one tiny shift at a time. Now, this might look as simple and actually it is as simple as maybe waking up a few minutes earlier every day or looking for job opportunities in the evening if you have a job that you hate. But these simple steps, these tiny little pivots over the long haul will make a tremendous amount of difference in your life and will actually bring you to that next step even faster than you could have ever possibly imagined. So one of the biggest steps or keys, I should say, for this step is to find someone to hold you accountable in making these tiny shifts, whether it's hiring someone as a coach, whether it's confiding in a trusted mentor or advisor, or just having an accountability buddy here inside of the 1 Degree Shift tribe. But give yourself permission to commit to taking this tiny action and doing it every single day, which brings us to step number 6, committing to taking action. So remember the story of the kernel of popcorn? When you make these tiny shifts daily, a whole world of possibilities open up that you never considered an option. And when you take the tiny little action and you pop that one kernel of popcorn every single day, what happens is you see the abundance of shifts and changes in a very short period of time. This is so incredibly amazing. Now, once you start to commit to taking daily action, those tiny little baby steps, that brings us to step 7. Start to look for evidence of what you're doing and start to look for evidence that it's working. This is the result. Remember in the whole habit loop thing, the result was part number 5 or element number 5 in a habit loop. When you start to see results, what happens is you're going to start to see your progress. Now, oftentimes when you very first start, you might not see a lot of evidence, but after a while, again, like that kernel of popcorn, the results are going to begin revealing themselves. Now, each little shift that you make is going to help you break out of those old habits, and it's helping you to form newer, healthier habits, and it's going to put you on that path towards changing your life. Now, this process is very gradual. It's very subtle. It very much is just a little tiny shift every single day. Remember when I was talking about in nature, whenever we actually look out in nature, and a lot of the times we don't really see those subtle shifts until all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, it's snowing, or oh my God, the leaves are so pretty. When did they change? They seem to change overnight. But the people that are actually focusing and looking at that tree, like those people that take pictures of their children every day for 20 years and then they put all of them together, you can see the drastic changes. But every day it's so subtle. And so that's what I want you to do is I want you to be open to those subtle shifts, open to those changes. Now, the cool thing about this 1 degree shift method process is that you can use it for the big stuff and you can use it for the little stuff. You can use it to shift yourself out of a bad mood, out of a stressful conversation, or just remove yourself from anything that just feels out of alignment for you. Now, the whole purpose of this method is to help you shift your life gracefully and easily towards a life that you want, towards a life that you're excited about. And it's going to help you in all the facets of your life. All the facets that no longer resonate with you, all the facets that are just slowly kind of choking and suffocating you. This will allow you to slowly shift into healthier habits, healthier relationships, healthier boundaries, and allow you to feel more empowered than ever before. So, what I want you to do is I want you to think about one thing that you want to shift in your life. Just one thing. And I want it to be simple right now. So pick one of the simplest things. Just, okay, maybe, I don't know, I'm not even going to put anything in your head, but just think about one simple thing that you want to shift. And I want you to apply these 7 steps right now and notice how that makes you feel. Then I want you to head on over to the next lesson. Remember, all it takes is a simple 1 degree shift to make magic happen and create a life you're excited about.